kingdom that crushes and shatters. Daniel continues his explanation of the dream image. As for the fourth king after Babylon, Medo Persia, and Greece, it will prove to be strong like iron. For as much as iron is crushing and grinding everything else, so like iron that shatters, it will crush and shatter even all these. Daniel chapter 2, verse 40. In its strength and ability to crush, this world power would be like iron, stronger than the empires represented by gold, silver, or copper. The Roman Empire was such a power. Rome crushed and shattered the Grecian Empire and swallowed up remnants of the Medo Persian and Babylonian world powers. Showing no respect for God's kingdom proclaimed by Jesus Christ, it put him to death on a torture stake in 33 CE. In an effort to shatter true Christianity, Rome persecuted Jesus' disciples. Moreover, the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and its temple in 70 CE. The iron legs of Nebuchadnezzar's dream image pictured not only the Roman Empire, but also its political outgrowth. Consider these words recorded at Revelation 17:10. There are seven kings, five have fallen, one is, the other has not yet arrived. But when he does arrive, he must remain a short while. When the Apostle John penned these words, he was being held in exile by the Romans on the island of Patmos. The five fallen kings, or world powers, were Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo Persia, and Greece. The sixth, the Roman Empire, was still in power, but it also was to fall. And the seventh king would arise from one of Rome's captured territories. What world power would that be? Britain was once a northwestern part of the Roman Empire, but by the year 1763 it had become the British Empire, the Britannia that ruled the seven seas. By 1776, its 13 American colonies had declared their independence in order to set up the United States of America. In later years, however, Britain and the United States became partners in both war and peace. Thus, the Anglo American combination came into existence as the seventh world power of Bible prophecy. Like the Roman Empire, it has proved to be strong like iron, exercising iron like authority. The iron legs of the dream image thus include both the Roman Empire and the Anglo American dual world power, a fragile amalgam. Daniel next told Nebuchadnezzar, whereas you beheld the feet and the toes to be partly of molded clay of a potter and partly of iron, the kingdom itself will prove to be divided, but somewhat of the hardness of iron will prove to be in it. For as much as you beheld the iron mixed with moist clay, and as for the toes of the feet being partly of iron and partly of molded clay, the kingdom will partly prove to be strong and will partly prove to be fragile. Whereas you beheld the iron mixed with moist clay, they will come to be mixed with the offspring of mankind, but they will not prove to be sticking together, this one to that one, just as iron is not mixing with molded clay. Daniel 2:41 to 43. The succession of world powers represented by the various parts of the image in Nebuchadnezzar's dream began with the head and extended down to the feet. Logically, the feet and toes of iron mixed with moist clay would symbolize the final manifestation of human rule that would exist during the time of the end. Daniel 12:4. At the dawn of the 20th century, the British Empire ruled over every fourth person on earth. Other European empires controlled millions more, but World War I resulted in the emergence of groups of nations in place of empires. After World War II, this trend accelerated. As nationalism developed further, the number of the nations in the world grew dramatically. The 10 toes of the image represent all such coexisting powers and governments. For in the Bible, the number 10 at times signifies earthly completeness. Exodus 34:24, 28, Matthew 25:1, Revelation 2:10. Now that we are in the time of the end, we have reached the feet of the image. Some of the governments pictured by the image's feet and toes of iron mixed with clay are iron like, authoritarian or tyrannical. Others are clay like. In what way? Daniel associated the clay with the offspring of mankind. Daniel 2:43. Despite the fragile nature of clay, of which the offspring of mankind are made, traditional iron like rulerships have been obliged to listen more and more to the common people, who want their say in the government ruling over them. Job 10:9. But there is no sticking together of authoritarian rule, and the common people, no more than there could be uniting of iron with clay. At the time of the image's demise, the world will indeed be politically fragmented. Will the divided condition of the feet and toes cause the entire image to collapse? What will happen to the image? A dramatic climax. Consider the climax of the dream. Daniel told the king, "You kept on looking until a stone was cut out of by hands, and it struck the image on its feet in iron and of molded clay, and crushed them. At that time the iron, the molded clay, the copper, the silver, and the gold were altogether crushed, and became like chaff from the summer threshing floor, and the wind carried them away, so that no trace at all was found of them. And as for the stone that struck the image, it became a large mountain and filled the whole earth." Daniel 2:34-35. By way of explanation, the prophecy continued. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be brought to ruin, and the kingdom itself will not be passed on to any other people. It will crush and put an end to all these kingdoms, and it itself will stand to times indefinite. For as much as you beheld that out of the mountain a stone was cut not by hands, and that it crushed the iron, the copper, and the molded clay, the silver and the gold, the grand God himself has made known to the king what is to occur after this, and the dream is reliable and its interpretation of it is trustworthy. Daniel 2:44 and 45. Appreciating that his dream had been called to mind and explained, Nebuchadnezzar acknowledged that only Daniel's God was a Lord of kings and a revealer of secrets. King also gave Daniel and his three Hebrew companions positions of great responsibility. Daniel 2:46 to 49. What though is the modern day significance of Daniel's trustworthy interpretation? A mountain fills the earth. When the appointed times of the nations ended in October 1914, the God of heaven established the heavenly kingdom by enthroning his anointed Son, Jesus Christ, as the King of kings and Lord of lords. Luke 21:24, Revelation 12:1 through 5, and chapters 19, verse 16. So it was that by divine power, not by human hands, the messianic kingdom stone was cut out of the mountain of Jehovah's universal sovereignty. This heavenly government is in the hands of Jesus Christ, upon whom God has conferred immortality. Romans 6:9, 1 Timothy 6:15, 16. Hence this kingdom of our Lord God and of his Christ, an expression of Jehovah's universal sovereignty, will not be passed on to anyone else. It will stand forever. Revelation 11:15. The birth of the kingdom took place in the days of those kings. Daniel 2:44. These were not only the kings pictured by the 10 toes of the image, but also those symbolized by its iron, copper, silver, and gold parts. Although the Babylonian, Persian, Grecian, and Roman empires had passed away as world powers, their remnants still existed in 1914. The Turkish Ottoman Empire then occupied the territory of Babylonia, and national governments were functioning in Persia, Iran, and Greece and Rome, Italy. God's heavenly kingdom will soon strike the symbolic image on its feet. As a result, all the kingdoms pictured by it will be broken to pieces, bringing them to an end. Indeed, at the war of the great day of God the Almighty, that stone will strike with such crushing impact that the image will be ground to powder, and the wind of God's storm will sweep it away like the chaff of a threshing floor. Revelation 16:14 and 16. Then, like the stone that grew to mountainous size and filled the earth, God's kingdom will become the governmental mountain that will affect the whole earth. Daniel 2:35. Though the messianic kingdom is heavenly, it will extend its power toward our globe for the blessing of all obedient inhabitants of the earth. This stable government will never be brought to ruin or be passed on to any other people. Unlike the kingdoms of dying human rulers, it itself will stand to time is indefinite, forever. Daniel 2:44. May you have the privilege of being one of its subjects eternally.